guys, we have Easton on, and Easton, man, I wanted to have you on because your story was kind of motivating to me. I heard John talking about you about a year ago, John Wetmore, and, you know, he was really sold out on you. There was like a lot of stuff about you that he really was just like, all right, this guy, he's a workhorse. I can teach him the business. You know, like if you're willing to go out and just bust your butt, anybody can figure this thing out. So I kind of wanted to just ask you if you could kind of share, like, what was your beginnings like when you first started with Family First Life? And then how did that journey look? What did you have to learn to get where you are today?
Cool. Well, thanks again for having me on, Brian. It's a huge honor, especially coming from you, one of the probably most popular trainers in the company. So I appreciate you inviting me to come on. Dude, when I first got rolling with Family First Life, I didn't really have any idea what I was getting myself into, to be honest. And my previous job was at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, same as Grayson. And when I was kind of like in that limbo mode, not sure whether I was gonna, you know, make the leap or not, they put me in touch with Grayson, and they were like, hey, this guy did 20 grand his first 2 weeks. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, it can't be that hard to do. So that's probably what I'm going to do when I come on board. So I just assumed that that's kind of what everyone did, is come on. It's super easy to go out and do 20 grand your first 2 weeks. And that was kind of a massive surprise to me how hard it was for me when I first started, because I wasn't as intentional about, you know, maybe the dial training or the tie downs or what to do in the house. I was listening to trainings, but just kind of like loosely listening to it and not staying absolutely focused and dialed. But I did have an understanding that it was just kind of a numbers game, right? Where you're just playing the volume. And they said, hey, as long as you're running 30 appointments a week, that's a full-time schedule. So you should be good to go. You know, you just do that for a couple of weeks, get in front of your first 100 people, and it's going to be a lot different for you. And when I went out and I ran 30 appointments the first time, which I think I did pretty close to that my first week, maybe my second week, and I got my butt kicked pretty bad. I think I wrote probably $800-900, maybe $1,000 or whatever, that ended up issuing. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to have this hard of a time doing 30, maybe I'll just run like 40 to 45 and give myself an extra 10-15 chances a week. Because I was so unbelievably terrible in the house, dude. I would get so nervous, and I start pushing through the appointment so I could get out of there and call and say, hey, the client didn't let me help them, and not kind of take responsibility for that part. So my whole thing from right out of the gate was I wanted to kind of give myself a chance to win. So that's when I changed from, like, if your normal person can do 30 a week and write 10 grand, I'm so bad I probably need to do like 40 to 45. And give myself 10 to 15 extra shots at this deal, so that I can go out and help some people. So that's kind of how I came on board. I was pretty aggressive with my lead flow right out of the gate. I was buying about 120 new Facebook leads a week and running up pretty close to 40 to 44 appointments. And I went through that learning curve for 10 weeks. So I was going out and I'd run 40 appointments, and then I'd pick up like 1,500, and I'd run 44 appointments and I'd do like 900, and then I'd run 40 appointments again, and then I'd do like $2,000. So I did that for 10 straight weeks, where I was really kind of riding that up and down emotional roller coaster. And that was really hard for me, dude. That was really tough. And when I was reaching out for help, they said, hey, look at the top 10 guys in the company. Do you think any of them would be where they're at if they would have quit when it got hard? And I was like, okay, cool. That makes sense. So all I have to do is not quit, and eventually I'll figure it out. Right. And then I'll be able to make a little bit of money and kind of back pay my credit card debt that I was racking up. So they were pretty crystal with me. As long as I don't quit, dude, I promise you'll figure it out. You just cannot give up when it gets hard. I didn't think it was going to take me 10 weeks, to be honest with you. So that was a little bit longer than I was expecting. But I'm super grateful that I kind of stuck it out.
That's crazy. So let me ask you this, man. What is it like? I mean, I know they told you, look at all the top 10 people, you know, they never quit. But like, what else is it that made you stick around? Because, dude, you were bad. It's okay. Like, but like, what made you stick around, dude? Like, what made you think that you could actually do it?
Probably because just with kind of how I grew up, I've always been working a bunch of hours. I got my first full-time job working on a neighbor's farm when I was 12. And so me and my buddy got the job there, and we were working like 70 to 75 hours a week that summer. Right. And so that was the very first job that I ever got that wasn't working up for my own family. My family runs a little cattle ranch up in Montana. So I'd spent a bunch of time working on that growing up. And my dad was like, it's time for you to get a job. If you want to, dirt bike and do whatever and have these hobbies, you need to get a job to pay for it. And so I went to work, and I'm pretty used to working a lot of hours and really hard. And this wasn't hard work, right? It's just, you just got to kind of get through that learning curve, but it's not difficult physical labor. Sean talks about that all the time. You're literally getting in a car, you're getting on the phone, you're going to people's houses, sitting in the AC or sitting in the heat. Like, it's not overwhelmingly difficult what we do physically. It's just mentally taxing when you're kind of getting through that learning curve. I was just pretty confident that I could outwork my situation I was putting myself in. Maybe a lot of it was for selfish reasons, to be honest with you, because I didn't really have any support outside of my significant other. She was great, but nobody else really thought that what I was getting into was a good idea. And so part of it was like, if I quit and they're right, and then I have to go swallow that right in front of them, and they're like, yep, see, I told you, insurance is too hard to do, and it's too competitive, or whatever it is. So maybe a little bit of it was selfish, but I knew that if I went to work, that there's no way I wouldn't be able to figure it out.
That is awesome, man. Something about you that fires me up is that, like, I've hired a lot of agents. We've hired a lot of agents, and some people have the right attitude, the right activity, and they do well, right? Some people, if you don't have both, you'll never really get to where most people want to be, right? But like, for you to stick around for 10 weeks trying to figure this out, most people don't make it, man. 10 weeks or something like that, most people would probably quit. And look at where you are now. That excites me, man. I'm looking at, like, and I don't want to get to it yet. Let's talk more about what was the transition like, going from struggling to like really starting to strive, and like really you're blossoming, you're blowing the heck up. So like, what did that transition look like? What did you change?
Yeah, so right out of the gate, I was not shy about reaching out for help, because they said, hey, if you really want help and you're willing to go to work, everybody at the company is willing to help you. So I was talking to, Zach and Wetmore and Andrew Taylor and Mark Mead. Like, I was reaching out and calling everybody for help. Athena and Josh Rose are kind of initially who brought me on. And then I just kind of volunteered myself to be, Zach's, I don't know what a good word for it is, but I just kind of like latched myself onto him because they're like, he's in the Hall of Fame. And I was like, okay, cool. That's for sure what I want to do. So I just kind of like forced my way into his life and like made him help me. And him and Wetmore made a deal with me. They're like, listen, as long as you're working, like, we are 100% down to help you fix what you got going on. But as soon as you stop working, there's no reason for you to keep calling us anymore. Because we can't help you if you're going to run 50 appointments and complain that you're not doing 30 grand a week. Like, there's nothing that we can actually do for you. So they were crystal clear with me about that right away. So the stuff that I changed the most was, for a while I was booking 40 appointments and I was sitting with like 10 people out of 40, right? So something was going wrong on the phone with me for my first, couple of weeks. So that was the first tweak I made. We kind of sat down and looked, well, how many people are you getting in front of? Right. So obviously I could get better on the phone. So then I started just listening to phone trainings from, Dom and Jamie Euphemia and anyone that was doing a phone training. I would just listen and take notes, and I would listen to it over and over and over. So I live like 20 minutes away from the gym. So I have 20-minute drive there and a 20-minute drive back, where I would be able to listen to that phone training twice every single morning before we started dialing. So that gives me 40 minutes of repetition just going through my mind over and over and over. So that was like step one. I got to get in front of more people, not just have a lot of appointments. And the second thing that I probably changed the most is I started carrying a run notebook with me, where I could physically write down and take notes of like, hey, they said this to me, I didn't know what to say. And then I could call John and Zach and Josh and Athena and ask for help. Like, hey, they said this and I didn't know what to say. What would you have done? And then I could take some notes. And then I started doing that in every single appointment. We're like, okay, I didn't know what to do here and I didn't know what to do here. And then I would call and ask for help and write it down. So that was like one big change that I probably made. And then the second one was I started setting a timer. That first 10 minutes of my appointment, I would literally get my phone out and I would set a timer for 10 minutes and I would just sit in that awkward, why period and try to figure out why I was at the house. And I didn't let myself move forward until my timer literally went off in the home. Wow. And then I would turn my timer off and I knew that it was time to move forward in the appointment because I forced myself to kind of sit. And sometimes it would get super awkward, like really, really uncomfortable. Because I would run out of questions like 3 minutes in and then I'm, sitting there like, it was really awkward, dude. But I forced myself to do that. And I picked that up from a training. Grayson and Zach did one about, hey, if everyone would spend just, 10 minutes in the house figuring out why they're in there before they move forward, they'd sell a lot more insurance. And I just literally, I applied that to the most literal version I could think of. And I set an actual timer in the appointments. And so between having to run notebook and setting a timer and forcing myself to get extremely uncomfortable in that first 10, 15 minutes, helped me help a lot more families, I guess, with insurance.
That's crazy. So obviously it makes a lot of sense with, if you're not sitting with the people, you're not sitting with them. So you got better there. I love the fact that you're writing down every single objection that you couldn't overcome. That's amazing. Because here's the deal, like these clients aren't sitting home trying to get better every day. They don't learn new things to say to us, right? There's only like 4 or 5 things they can say, and we got to learn how to crush them, right? But the last thing, man, that stands out. See, a lot of people, I'm talking to the people, I'm like, hey guys, what was their why? And they're like, well, I don't know. How are you sitting at an appointment? How are you selling life insurance, something that's an emotional sell that you back up with logic, if you don't know somebody's why? Dude, that's amazing, man. So, dude, I might even apply that, man. I go back in the field, I might apply that. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem getting people's why, but I like it so much. I feel like a brand new person, even if they did 5 minutes, because most people aren't willing to be like you. So, for example, where did you get that from to not be worried about what people think or worried about being judged? Because you definitely ain't worried about being judged. And you're 10 minutes, it's awkward, you don't give a crap, but you're still pushing.
Yeah, well, and we just hear it so much from the top down about, just how important that part is, and nobody can judge you, right? So if you truly put the client first and you show emotion and you care for the family you're sitting down with, it's pretty hard not to get uncomfortable. So I think I understood that this was bigger than myself. So what's the worst possible thing that can happen in a house is they can ask you to leave, right? And if that's the worst thing that can happen in our job, actually technically the worst thing that can happen is you don't protect the family and something bad happens to them, right? And then it truly is our fault because, again, they're the ones that sent in the request for help and we went over there and screwed it up. And I screwed up a whole bunch of stuff when I first started. Like, I wish I could go back and see all the families I saw my first 2 months and help all of them, because I feel like I probably could now. But it's bigger than myself, right? So if I get uncomfortable and it gets awkward and they end up asking me to leave, I just go to my next appointment because I have 11 more that day, so it's not that big of a deal. But if I'm not willing to get uncomfortable and ask the questions and make them truly think about, well, what does this look like? My daughter's got a kid, a family. She makes 30 grand a year. She can't come up with 20 grand overnight. Talk to me about that a little bit. And you have them walk you through what is going to financially happen to their loved one. It's pretty hard for them at the end to say, I changed my mind. I don't care about that person anymore. I don't want to do it. Right? That would be really weird for them to do after they spent 10 minutes walking you through how badly they needed the insurance for their loved ones.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Hey, so this is the last thing I want to ask you on this, but I'm thinking, dude, what does it look like if you could tell me what did it look like, or what does a schedule look like when you're running $93,000 in a month? You did 93 grand last month, bro. First off, are you mad that you didn't just squeak out another 7? That would have been 100 grand, dude.
Yeah, and you know what? If I would have known that I was going to be that close, I would have ran back-to-back power weekends and stacked up my schedule a little heavier. If I knew that I was going to be that close to hitting 100, because I'm not upset about how my month went, but to be that close and not know it, I would have ran a couple extra.
Talk to me about what your schedule actually looks like. Like, break it down. I know the days that you call a run day. How does it look? When are you done? Like, break it all down, your whole week, if you could.
Yep. So I always have about 100 brand new leads every single week. I typically ran like 95% final expense. I'm just kind of getting my foot into the water with some more mortgage. I had one area locked out up in Montana where I would take a travel trip once a month and run my mortgage appointments. With the retros that we have out now, I'm able to like sign up for some retro counties locally. So now I'm getting a little bit more of the mortgage action. I probably am like 80% final expense, 20% mortgage now. So I'm getting my foot in the door a little bit more with the mortgage side of things. So my schedule, Monday is my dial day, obviously. 7:30 a.m. is when I start dialing. And I don't really lay off the call button until, somewhere between 11 and 12. And usually I have such a heavy lead flow that I can usually book up my entire schedule by 11 or 12 o'clock. Certainly sometimes I'll still have days where I have to dial till 7:30 or 8 at night to make sure that I have my, 18, 20 to 22 appointments, whatever it is, that I'm going for that dial session. But from 7:30 to noon, I am laser focused. And I'm just getting as many calls in as I possibly can. I've gotten to a point where I'm pretty comfortable on the phone now. So I feel like if someone answers the phone, I have a pretty good chance of setting the appointment. And that's just kind of like part of my mindset. Hey, if you answer, I'm coming over tomorrow or the next day for sure. And so that's kind of how my dial session is structured. And then I have, interviews from 12 to 8 p.m. And certainly I'll dial in between my interviews if I'm not booked up by noon. Run Tuesday, Wednesday is just a matter of going out and seeing the families that I set up. And then same thing on Thursday, back in the office. I live about an hour and a half from the office, so I come up here every Monday and Thursday, in here by 7 o'clock, dialing from 7:30 to noon again, setting my 18 to 22 appointments. I will run a couple of power weekends throughout the month, where I'll have a little bit heavier lead flow going into Thursday, maybe like 70 or 75 leads. And I'll hop on the phone and I'll book Friday, Saturday, Sunday and try to run, 25 to 30 appointments over the weekend on a travel trip. I try to do that when I go up to Montana if I have a good enough lead flow to run a 3-day. I think that gives you a good chance to get ahead in the month. If you're doing at least one of those a month where you just take and run one power weekend, because then if you end up knocking out 45 to 50 appointments in a week, it is really, really hard not to do well. So I love having those, either 1 or 2 weekends a month where you do the 3-day weekend and you just run really heavy schedule. Outside of that, I mean, I'm 6 days a week. I do typically take Sundays to spend time with my future wife. Keeps me out of the, the doghouse and happy wife stuff. So I do take time outside to spend with her. I think that's important as far as my schedule goes. Now, when I first started, I did not. I was like, you're not going to see me for 90 days. So just relax for 90 days. I'm going to do this 7 days a week until I learn how to do it. And then I'll be able to spend some more time with you after that. Just as a side note, I was 7 days a week for my first 90. And that's pretty much how I run my schedule.
That's crazy. So your first appointment is when, and when is typically your last appointment at night?
So I for sure run 8 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. is my last appointment. If I can squeeze in a 6:45 a.m. appointment, I always like to do that 6:45 to 7. I always try to get one. I don't have success with that every day that I'm on the phone. But if I can run from 6:45 as my first appointment and 8:30 at my last one, that means I have an appointment every hour and 15 minutes throughout the entire day, which is like 11 or 12 appointments. Depending on my drive time and the area that I'm running in, will certainly affect how many appointments I can squeeze in. But I like that every hour and 15 instead of every hour on the hour. I change that to kind of relieve some mental stress of like, oh, I'm going to be so late to my next one. I got to push through this one, and then you end up missing. So I stretched out my schedule a little bit. You can do, depending on, I think, the area you run, every hour, 15, hour and a half. it gives you enough time to do a good job in the house and still get to your next one without feeling overwhelmed by your own schedule. Because that used to happen to me a lot. That's one thing, my conversation with Mark Mead, he corrected my run schedule of doing 10 appointments and getting home at 5:30 p.m. Also a big change that I made, by the way. I forgot to talk about that earlier.
Cool. Let me ask you this. Let's talk about leads. Let's talk about your lead flow, because a lot of people are asking what leads do you use? Can you break down the vendors that you use? Because our company doesn't sell leads, but we have vendors that you have access to getting whatever you want from. So who do you use?
So I use Leadrilla. I've done Lead Bank, Happy Agent Leads, Tips, Tricks, and Closers, DIMG. I probably used every vendor that we could try. I've kind of tried all of them. Social Insurance Leads is another one. I like the Leadrilla ones, the Pro, because they have to put beneficiary if they have insurance and how much they want. So any kind of pro lead where you pay a little bit extra for the extra information. I kind of like those. It would be really weird if they filled out all that information and then said, oh, I didn't know this was for life insurance, when it specifically asked them those questions on there. So I like to pay a little bit extra for the ones that they have to like lay out, how much insurance they have and what they're looking for and who their beneficiaries are. But I will try any and all vendors. And then I'm doing the retro mortgage mails with Mail Pro, and then regular new mortgage with Mail Pro and ARM. That's kind of all the different vendors that I use.
That's the mortgage that you said you were dipping into, the retro mortgage?
Yep, the retros and then the regular new ones and whatever ones we get through ARM for the couple of counties that I have locked out. Okay,
cool. So guys, I want to go ahead and open it up so people can ask you questions for a few minutes. I'm sure we got a lot of questions, dude. You figured it out, which is pretty cool. Guys, unmute yourself if you have a question for Easton.
Hey. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, Millie.
Hey, it's the Porcinas here. We're just like, it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, wow, if we could just get every agent to be like you, it would be lights out for everyone. So we just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing. You're awesome. I love how you just did 90 days. You just went to it. And, the fact that you took your credit card and you said, I'm just going to keep buying leads. I'm just going to keep doing what I need to do. Buying over 100 leads a week. You set yourself up to win. And you are a winner. And we're just, honored to be, hearing you today. Thank you so much.
Hey, yeah, thanks. Thanks a bunch, Millie.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, anyone else? Just unmute yourself. Got 50 plus people on here.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Antonio.
Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to see or get some advice on overcoming objections from customers.
Okay.
What type of script you're using or your verbiage?
So as far as like on the phone or in the house objections?
On the phone, sir.
Got it. So how I do my phone script is set up so that they only really have a couple of like 3 or 4 times where they say yes. And then I book the appointment and then it's just a matter of tying it down. So I try not to let them say a whole lot, and I just kind of move through anything that they say to me on the phone. I just kind of continue through, right? So if they're like, oh, I don't remember filling that out. Got it. I don't remember what I ate for breakfast. Like I was saying, my name is Easton. I'm the underwriter assigned to you here in the county. You put your date of birth was X and your address is this. Is that correct? And as soon as they start to say, well, yeah, then I immediately start kind of like talking through them or over them. Okay, great. So as I said, my name is Easton, field underwriter here in Yellowstone County. I'm the one that's assigned to your case. I say stuff like, just like you read on the ad, it's all non-medical, so there's no blood, physical, or urine. They just send me out there to verify your ID and make sure that you're not strapped full-time into a hospital bed or anything. It takes about 10, 15 minutes or so. Now, Brian, are you working, retired, or disabled? and then I'll just move right into the next part. So all I want to do is keep pressing forward, no matter what they say to me on the phone. I didn't do it. I'm not interested. As long as you confirm for me their date of birth, their address. I know some of the leads have a hobby or dream vacation or whatever. The date of birth and the address are usually such fixed things that it's hard for them to say that wasn't them when they plugged in their date of birth and address. So I always kind of go to those things, and then I just keep moving through and going back to the top no matter what they say to me on the phone. Because eventually they're going to let me come over or hang up, and then I can go to my next one.
I love it. Easton, it's like you really don't care. You don't care either way. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Got so many. Guys, that's why you buy so many leads. So you can have brass, you know what. You won't care that much. You got so many appointments. You got so many leads to call. You can be yourself and talk whatever you want to talk. I call it talking greasy. I start talking greasy when I have a whole bunch of appointments. I'm like, look, you better stop acting crazy, or I'm going to my next appointment.
Yes.
Guys, we're gonna open it up for one last question, guys, because we gotta respect this guy's time. He's supposed to be on the phone right now, but he's sitting here serving us, man, which is awesome.
I have a question. Were you skeptical at first about it because of other insurance companies?
So it didn't make sense to me that someone that was 23 years old and had a background in biology could do 400 grand. That seemed like a bit of a stretch. And I'm talking about Zach, obviously. So I'm not different than anyone else. Of course I had my concerns, and for me, I was like, well, if it was really this easy to make 100 grand, every single person would work here on the planet. That doesn't make any sense. Like, people are sending in warm requests for help, saying, come help me with life insurance. And then all you do is go over there and help them. Like, why doesn't everybody do this? And as I kind of got into it, it was like, okay, well, because it takes a little bit of mental toughness. You got to work some extra hours. You got to be willing to invest in yourself. So of course there's a few reasons. And when you really look at it, if you're not someone you have to have some kind of self-belief, or you'll never, I think this would be a very difficult thing for you to do. Because if all you're doing is doubting yourself and saying, well, these people must be different than me, and there's just too many top producers from every single different background that you could possibly be in that do so well here. For me, that's kind of solidified that this was very doable for anybody that was willing to put the work in. So maybe before I started, in that first week, I was like, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, whether it was on the phone or in the house. But once you get in front of 100 people and you screw everything up to the max amount that you can possibly screw up, which is what I did, it really becomes a pretty simple, straightforward process, and you start building the confidence that you need. So outside of that first couple of weeks, once you get that first deposit that's like $1,200 to $1,500, you're like, okay, well, that took me 45 minutes in that appointment to do this. I can probably do that a couple times, a day or a week or whatever, and start, making some money. And then it just kind of builds the belief on top of that, I think.
That's strong.
Yeah.
Serenity, did that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, it was, for the most part, not in terms of self-sufficiency, but it was more so working for a previous company, like some of us have, that were like bait and switch schemes and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I didn't have that experience. And once I found out that we didn't have to sign a contract here, that made me feel a lot better. Because I was like, well, if I suck at it and I want to leave, at least I'm not stuck here. Right. So worst case scenario is I went and messed it up for a few weeks, hated it, and then went and got a regular job again. So I didn't doubt the company ever, just because when you watch the video of Sean, I don't know if anyone believes in what he has put together more than him, obviously. So it was pretty reassuring for me.
That's strong. I don't think anybody could have put it a better way. Did I look at all the people from all the different backgrounds? Do you come from Enterprise Rent-A-Car? You and Grayson. I sold gym memberships. Mark did mortgages. People had restaurants. Andrew used to he worked at a grocery store back in groceries. All used to pump
Dude, before Enterprise, I was a professional hillbilly. So if I can figure it out, dude, I promise you everybody else can too.
Hey, man, listen, I appreciate your time. Listen, Easton, if I could do anything for you, your team, you need me on a call or anything like that, man, just let me know. I see a couple other people unmuted, man. I'm trying to respect your time. Would you take one more question, or do you got to run?
Yeah, go ahead.
One more person, guys, either Rob or...
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hey, let me tell you, you are inspirational. One of the reasons why is because I love the fact that you said you went through a tough time and you just didn't give up. In that, how did you keep your mind focused on just I will not give up. I'm going to kick this thing's behind and I'm going to win. Help me out with that.
Yeah, so I think if you find a big enough personal why, it's really hard to give up when you run into a little bit of adversity. I mean, most people, I don't think I've ever met anyone that's never gone through anything in their life. And if, you know, I just am from a really positive situation, I guess, where, you know, I had a really, really supportive family growing up. So when I was going through athletic struggles and making changes and getting better athletically, or in school or whatever, I had a ton of support and kind of like drive from my folks. They were just like, oh, well, obviously you're not going to be great at anything when you're brand new. So how about you just give it a shot and work a little bit and see if you can improve. And so I just kind of have a background where I was super fortunate to grow up around people who were supportive of me. And my why was, again, I was talking to Brian about it being maybe a little bit selfish when I first started, but I had a lot to prove to a lot of people that told me that this was stupid, right? So, and I didn't know what it was going to be like long term, but there's no way that if people like Grayson and Zach and, you know, there's a couple of like 21-year-old guys and girls that work here that are writing 40, 50 grand a month. Like, why would they be able to do it and not me? Right? Especially because they're just working. They're not doing anything different. They're literally using words, and everybody can say the same words in the house, which is another cool thing about us. You know, Sean talks about no matter how hard he trained, he couldn't dunk from the free throw line. And I'm the same way, but anybody can learn how to say words in a specific order and learn to help the families with them. So I had a really good why, a lot of people to prove, and to prove to myself that I could do it and truly be independent. So I think if you kind of just reflect a little bit on what you're doing this for, it's pretty hard to quit.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Dude, you the man. You need me for anything, you let me know, okay?
All right, Brian, I appreciate you having me on.
Guys, let's make it a great weekend. Let's go out and kill it. If you need anything, reach out to me. Take care, guys.
Thank you.